So, yeah, I mean, basically, I retroactively decided to be a swan. Does that work?
Yeah.
Oh, well, no, keep going, sorry.
It's a quick clap.
Sorry.
But you should be right in the middle of something.
The bliss of the abyss, it's here now.
Welcome back to The Bliss of the Abyss. My name's Robin Neumark Jones. I will be your host for this episode. And it's with great delight that I can announce the guest on this episode is Nadya Menuhin, the scriptwriter for the play The Passenger, which just finished its sold-out run on Saturday. And what better time than to drop this episode when we go into all kinds of things. We didn't even get a chance to really mention pancakes or Superman or any of that stuff. But what we did get to talk a lot about was some really interesting ideas to do with the play and some of her stories growing up. And we talked about what it's like going to prison, what it's like having a famous grandfather, adapting books into plays, and bullying, and Jewish jokes, and pervs in pants, and oh my gosh, all kinds of other things. It makes for a fantastic, interesting and enlightening hour, and Nadya is a really brilliant mind with a really wonderful perspective on art and life, and I think you're going to really enjoy this episode. So, without further ado, it's my pleasure to welcome Nadya Menuhin. You can be anyone.
Okay, great.
I can even not use your real name in the thing. I might go counter to what you want to get out of this. I don't know what you want to get out of this.
I don't want to get anything out of this apart from, nothing. I don't have any expectations.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, goodbye. Welcome to the show anyway, Nadya.
Thank you, Robert.
Do you want your full name or is Nadya okay?
Nadia's fine. Or Miss Menuhin. Yeah.
Nads.
Nads, that is... God, yeah.
Yep.
My uncle calls me Nads.
Yeah.
It's okay. My cousins call me Nads. Whenever I went on races at school, I'd be called Go Nads. Or they'd say Go Nads from the sideline, which was super helpful.
And that's why you're such a good sprinter.
It is, because I've got chutzpah. I'm quite good at cross country, actually.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm 5 foot tall, but I've got resilience and stamina, whatever. Yeah.
All the best people who are long distance do actually, they have that kind of slimmer build, don't they? They're not these huge athletic monstrous types, are they?
Yeah, it's very kind that you had
Unlike
athletic and monstrous after you said athletic. It's my 5 foot stature which sort of gives me away at not being a great sprinter.
Right. What are the sporting benefits of being 5 foot? This is your area of expertise, I know.
Oh yeah, of course. And the sporting you can hide.
And what sport is that good in?
That's good at getting out of sports. You can, well, that's it really.
yeah, sure. You can give people a leg up in basketball.
I can do that. Yeah.
Is that allowed?
I think so. I was never very good. I didn't enjoy sports. There was a geography teacher who used to do aerobics.
Oh yeah.
Aerobics. It was on the floor, not in the air, and it was. There was a video that we followed. And
Well, it's your geography teacher.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Yeah. You're meant to learn about tributaries and oxbow lakes.
It was for yeah. How do you know so much about strata and?
There we go.
See, I got a little bit of the lingo, and this and that, and volcanoes. No, so magma chambers. She was non-sporting, as was I, and a bunch of other people in my year, and so she offered to give us aerobics.
Separate to geography.
Separate to geography, but instead of all the other sporting activities.
Okay.
So
that's cool.
It's cool, yeah.
That's quite good. Yeah, so you don't have to go and play rugger bugger or whatever. You can bend and flex and point and stretch.
And you see, these things.
Well, I've done them.
Did you rugger bugger?
No, definitely not.
Aerobics.
Well, no, I was okay at football. That stopped me being bullied. That's pretty important as a boy.
Oh, were
you got to be something. Yeah, of course I was bullied. Yeah.
What were you bullied for?
For my dad dying? This is quite early to get right into this, but yeah, man, kids are ruthless, huh?
God.
Yeah, So that's what they'd use to taunt me. It's quite hard to have a defence at 8 as well. Do you know what I mean? You're not quite switched on to be like, yeah, well, your dad will be next or whatever.
Yeah.
Which isn't a bad comeback. No, instead you just start crying and then you get beaten up.
Oh my God. Yeah. Where was this? London?
Yeah, primary school. Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, but then I was pretty good at football, so that kind of rescued me a bit. Because it would be like, don't hurt him, he's our right winger.
Yeah.
I think. There's no pun intended. I have a right foot, that's all.
Oh, yes, okay, yes. I know little about football, only that I love to taste it in the stadiums.
Ah, yes, isn't it good?
It's amazing. I don't know what's happening. I know when the ball, what's...
crosses the line and
generally,
people cheer.
Yeah, it's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
There's something addictive in the crowd and quite frightening. Mm-hmm. But that's so cruel. Children can be cruel. I mean, you see things on the television like recently and you think, God, it's just the playground, but with like uglier, older looking people.
Yeah, it is. I know. And that's, you sort of think, oh, come on, do better.
Yeah, do better.
But then maybe they don't want to.
I was not a fan of the playground at all. No. I was born with a severe underbite and I had a head brace.
No way you had a head brace.
I had fucking head brace, but I
the
didn't...
one that you could tighten that was actually a bit of hardware around your noggin.
It was hardware around my head. It was with elastics of different lengths, but I refused to wear it at school. I would just wear it at night.
Yes, okay.
But I still...
Oh God, sleeping with it can't have been very comfortable.
No. But I did wear it at school twice and that was the end of that. And no one forgets. You only have to do that once.
Yeah.
And then I had like very, very short hair. So I looked like a boy. And Crusoe Miller, who runs a pub around the corner. Every now and again I go for a pint with my brother and I'm hoping he's going to be behind the bar serving me and I don't know what I'll do. I'm not ready for it, but...
I don't know. An upper decker? Sorry, this is quite childish. Do you know what that is?
No, is that a punch in the upper decker?
No, it's when you take a poo in the cistern of the toilet and you leave it. And a smell hangs around and people can't tell why. They keep flushing, it won't go away.
Oh, because you have to do it in the bit where you lift the bit in the middle.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh my God.
That's the way to get back. What was the name?
Crusoe Miller.
Crusoe Miller.
Yeah, Crusoe Miller used to... I haven't even told you what he did, but it was... he used to lift up my skirt and look and say, you're a boy, you're not a girl. And I had all these friends, Gemma and Bianca, who were very girly. And yeah, anyway, I was like a little underbite, rain collecting in my lower jaw, short hair. Slosh. I was basically drowning in my own mouth. And yeah, it's funny that how I remember. Do you remember the people who taunted you?
Absolutely. Rishi was the worst of them, Rishi Shah. Because he was the most psychologically cutting. You know, the boys that would just like punch you or push you or whatever, less bad. But the psychological one was the worst. And speaking of pancakes, we just had pancakes downstairs. It's pancake day. Thank you very much, Nadya, for deliciously, expertly cooked pancakes. And that 720 flip you did in the air and landed perfect was just like blew my mind.
Thank you.
Incredible.
Yes.
But we had egg and flour day. Do you remember that at school? Do you ever have egg and flour day?
When you throw eggs at people and then flour?
Yes, and they get covered in both and it's sticky and it's supposed to be fun.
Never.
I don't know why we had it, but we had it. But that was one of the worst memories of my life because I tripped over and then the bullies took that as an opportunity to just all stand on top of me and pelt me with eggs.
Oh my God.
Which really hurts at close range.
Yes,
you know,
they're hard.
Yeah.
They were unboiled.
Unboiled, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that would have, yeah. Hard-boiled would have not had the same effect. But it would have been more bruising.
Yeah, and I was covered in bruises and the flour didn't help much.
And then were you allowed to go home or did you have to
I just went home, yeah. Everyone else just was running around going, eggs and flour. And
what a load of arseholes. What's the swearing issue here? Are we allowed?
You can say arsehole, fuck. You can't say cunt though.
Okay, really? It's one of my favourites. I'm afraid the currency of swear words in my household, and I've got kids, you know, a 19-year-old and a 15-year-old, and they go out into the wide world and they use words that mums use just like, you know, just flipping the bird. We flip the bird at each other because it's
Sure,
funny, but you
'cause it's
can't do
funny.
it out there.
No.
So they've had to learn the
Setting.
hard way.
Yeah, context is important. No, I have no policy against it.
Okay.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, but no, that's terrible to be pelted with eggs.
Yeah, that was one of the worst things. Were you bullied?
I never thought of it as bullying. I thought of it as like just arsehole kids.
If you did the thing with the skirt multiple times, it's bullying, right?
That was multiple times. So I feel like
Yeah.
he bullied me, Crusoe Miller. And the fact that I remember him with such vehemence, perhaps suggests something. But there was also, I just go through the whole list. But Henry and Alexander Nuremberg weren't any better. And I was in love with Alexander Nuremberg. So he had extra power. I vested
He knew
it.
it. He knew you were in love with him.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
That was really crushing.
Yeah. You showed your cards.
Way too soon. And his mum worked for UNICEF, so she liked children, and she was so homey, and I kind of loved his mum, I think. That's been my thing. I love my mother-in-law, counter to like everyone else in the world. I go for the mums first.
Yeah, I think that's sensible.
It's my tactic.
Yeah, that's your tactic. You seem okay. Let me meet your mum. Oh, she's lovely. You know what? You're actually better than okay.
Yeah. Should definitely have like a dating app. Wait, maybe I could do this. Maybe this will be my next gig. A dating app where you meet the parents first. It's called Meet the Parents.
Okay.
How about that? Or meet some of
First.
Or like...
So you have to have at least an initial spark.
Yeah, sorry, we're going back into like 18th century tactics. Forget it.
Yeah, your brand new system is the dowry system, basically.
Yeah.
I think it'll work.
No, I take it back. I'm afraid I speak before I think, but
I know what you mean.
No, making pancakes was good this morning.
It was delicious. Thank you very much. But look, we're not here to talk about making pancakes. We're here to talk about anything, but also obviously your wonderful play. And I want to learn more about, how you got to writing the play and to where you are now. Not literally your living room. Or you can tell me that if that's an interesting story as well. And I'm sure some people will be listening to it who recognise your surname and might want a story there, if you've got any interesting stories there. Okay. So we can pick and choose, and we can go, it doesn't have to be chronological, it can be anything. But I suppose let's start with the play, seeing as that's where we are now.
I love a lack of chronology.
Yeah, me too.
So we meander, and we start with...
We meander. We don't even have to start with the play. What's on your mind now? What would you like to talk about?
No, I think you put a flag in that. I think it's good to start with the book.
Yeah, let's start with the book.
That turned into the play.
So when did you first read or become aware of The Passenger?
So, in 2021, a friend of mine, Max Elton, who, well, at the time he was more of we hadn't yet become fast friends, but I work as a literary agent, and I represent a lot of books in adaptation and film as well. And I'm going to name drop Lars von Trier now, just so you know, and Ruben Östlund, and so big dudes in adaptation for the UK stage. It's pretty niche. And Max Elton said, "Did I know anything about this book, The Passenger, that he'd just read and was incredible, and that I should consider." Would I consider turning it into a stage play, but also did I know how to get the rights? And so I read it. I was in Switzerland and then Austria at the time. And there is a series of trains between them. So part of it was read on a train rail network. A very efficient one, I've got to say.
Is Austria part of the Reichsbahn, or has it got its own thing?
At the time, it was part of the Reichsbahn. I believe, yes, it was, because in March 1938 there was the Anschluss.
Yes,
it's now ÖBB as opposed to SBB, which is the Swiss rail.
Right.
And so I read it, part of it, on these networks, and it was just an incredible book because it was a thriller, as well as being rooted in a real historical moment, as well as sometimes coming across as, I use the word irreverent, but I don't really mean that. It just, because the author didn't know what was to come, and he in fact died before the Wannsee Conference and the death camps of the Holocaust, there's something in it that has hope. So the original title in English was The Man Who Took Trains, and that just has a feeling of there's just an activeness to the word, to that whole title. Shall I just get it?
Is that your door?
Yeah, it's my
Go.
Shall I just wasn't coming.
The bliss of the abyss.
So it's called The Man Who Took Trains,
yes.
and that's a more active.
Yeah, it's like you're taking trains. Because the character in the end is actually quite passive. But when you say the man who took trains, the subject of that sentence is the man taking the trains. He's not the passenger, which, okay, that's also a subject, but he's a passenger. It's more like COVID times.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Agreed.
So it was just a thrill to read, and I've read a lot of literature around that time, both like fiction and non-fiction, and I was reading it alongside Victor Klemperer's diaries, he was a Berlin Jew who survived miraculously, but kept a diary. So I had this side-by-side thriller, nightmare, horrorscape of this man taking a series of trains, plus the real life of a Berlin Jew.
Who stayed in Berlin the whole time? Wow, that must have been increasingly difficult.
Yes, it was amazing, and what's terrible is that I'm very bad with plot. I never remember plot. Not that it was plot, sorry, this was a real diary.
Well, still.
But my big focus was on his cat. All I can remember is his discussions with his wife about his cat Mushel, because in 1938 there was a series of new laws. There were endless laws coming out, one of which was Jews cannot have pets. They were also worried about being able to feed Mushel, the cat. And so that's the most pertinent part of his entire war diary that I remember, and that just says something about me and not about his diaries, which were actually fascinating. There's a big blank. He writes every day, and then there's a blank around Kristallnacht. But yeah, so sorry, 2021, I read this book, and I just went to the British Library and I found the original translation, which to me was a different experience, because the people who translated it was a husband and wife living in exile in Belsize Park, and they wrote it knowing they were German exiles, German Jewish, so they knew the original language of the time, and they knew what was happening, and they themselves had escaped. So there's a certain freneticism in the language they use, and I started working on it then. And here we are in 2025.
And you knew you were going to adapt it into a play.
Yeah.
And you've been part of a course. You did a course in playwriting, and you've been part of BBC Writersroom. Am I getting some of these details right?
I did the Royal Court Writers course.
That's right.
Which was great, and we had a Scottish playwright called Steph Smith who took it, and she was very fearless. I am not fearless, but if I'm with fearless people, or other people who are, maybe they're pretending to be fearless, but I can get that, but I can't do it on my own. And she sort of pushed us over the edge, like in a good way. And not over the edge, she just pushed us.
To the edge.
To the edge, and then we flew.
There we go. Great, yeah. But as part of that, you have to produce pieces, presumably, but they don't have to be like full length or anything like that.
We were supposed to write a full-length play, and I did. Sorry, I say it like I didn't. I did write a full-length play.
A full-length play.
It was very not great, but I've worked on it since, and it went for a series of readings in Ireland, in Galway, where there's Druid Theatre.
Oh yeah.
Where Martin McDonagh started there. So I was like, look at me, and then it just didn't make it.
Right.
Just had a couple of readings. And that is, hopefully something's happening with that. I did writers' courses and...
But then this was your first full-length, produced play?
This is my first big thing, this is my first play.
Wow.
Yeah.
Goodness me. How long after finishing the course did you write the play?
The Passenger, the adaptation?
Yeah.
2 years after.
Okay.
And actually that was the first draft. And my first draft was very beholden to the book.
Of course.
And then slowly went further away. It's not far away, it's just that it had to find its own language on the stage.
Yeah.
And of course, you've read both and you are inhabiting the play, but the character of Fritz, who returns, doesn't return in the book.
No.
And Otto keeps coming across other Jewish characters who are 1 or 2 steps ahead of him in the nightmare because they look Jewish or one doesn't always know why.
Yes.
And so I found that character, like Fritz, for me, and I never said this because I like everyone to find their own characters in the. That's what's been so fascinating about the process, that I had ideas, and some of them were what was realised in the room and has become the thing as part of the production, and some which weren't. But there was no right or wrong. But Fritz, the recurrent Fritz, who doesn't exist in the book, for me was a sort of symbol of what's to come for Otto himself.
That's interesting. Yeah, now that you say that is exactly it. He is always...
like a canary.
He is. He's always those few steps ahead or below, whatever, you know what I mean, of the situation Otto. And that's probably why Otto doesn't want to be with him, because it's always confronting the reality would be too much, and he's sort of, to a greater or lesser extent, in some form of denial.
Yeah.
There's always some sort of... It will all work out.
Yeah.
Which, you know, becomes smaller and smaller, but I think that nugget is still there, even quite close to the end, of believing that this will somehow turn around. Even in the crazy act of going to the police station at the end, maybe there's some small nugget of, because I want to report a crime. And where else would you go?
Yeah. I had something incredible a few days ago, actually on Saturday, when we had this meeting with the Second Generation Survivors Network after the show. Yeah. I actually hadn't realised that there were Jews in the wake of Kristallnacht who were going and reporting to their insurance companies. Again, just like another sign that they thought they were living in a sort of rational state.
Yeah.
I mean, the state, not their state.
Yes.
Which was, so anyway, so this is my first big play, and I'm 39, I'm going to be 40 in a couple of months.
Same.
Congratulations. April 5th.
April 23rd.
Oh my God.
Yes, yeah. I know.
Thank God.
Shakespeare's birthday, thank you.
Is it?
And birthday.
That really?
Yes.
That is something. Well, I feel like I'm kind of an old newbie, because you knew what you wanted to do from quite early on, didn't you?
I?
Well, I mean, how old were you when you went to Moscow for the studying acting?
I was in like my mid-20s when I went to drama school. So that's a bit later than...
Okay, because you did philosophy.
Yeah.
Okay. But you were still in your 20s.
I was still in my 20s.
Yeah.
You think that's young enough?
I think that's young enough. I definitely feel... Even when I did the course at the Royal Court in 2019, I was by far the oldest person there. I was the same age as the lady who took it, which was fine. But, yeah.
Did you feel like the grandma of the group?
I didn't, because they were all so self-assured, and no, in a very nice way. Like they felt quite confident, and I've had to learn that. And it's all bullshit anyway. But
exactly.
Yeah, but I didn't. They were all lovely, and I've made some really good friends, and it was lovely to be around people who all wanted to do the same thing. I hadn't, because I had kids I had my first child when I was 19, so I hung out with loads of mums.
Yeah.
And then
You told me, didn't you, that you were at university and you were pregnant, and it just was a completely different experience for you. It's just so weird to everyone's sort of going out drinking and socialising and stuff, and you're like, well, better take the bump home. It must be very hard to make friends and connections and stuff when you're living in a completely different reality.
It was, but I've always found it hard to make friends, Robert. I don't have any friends. So that was not the difference, really. I'm a misanthrope.
Are you?
Yes, I don't like people at all. Actually, could you just leave? It was difficult. It wasn't, no, let me get this right. The first year, I did everything everyone else did. And then the second year, I made friends with all my lecturers. They were quite brilliant. And you've met one of them.
Yes. Yeah, Mike. Is
Michael
that his name?
Berkovitz.
And just, wow.
He's so great. And he was one of the... So, yeah, I was in my second year at uni. I was 19, and he was, along with the whole French department, they sent an email around called Mum's the Word, and said, Nadya Menuhin is with child. Does anyone have a spare room during lectures for breastfeeding? And I promise, I tried that once, and it was a complete nightmare. So I figured it all out, and I turned up to as many lectures as I could. Nowadays you could use Zoom, probably.
Probably, yeah.
And then I had some really good friends who would come and loved the novelty of looking after a baby, and who'd never held children before, but neither had I until I held my baby.
Yeah.
And the nurse was like, "Oh, how do you?" He's called Nico. Sorry, he's got a name and everything. And the nurse showed me how to hold his head. But yeah, it was just different.
And that sort of, I think, forces you to grow up sooner as well, and presumably force you to get like a proper job and stuff like that. And straight out of university, you don't really have time to just sort of float around like most people do in their 20s.
There was definitely like a feeling in our family unit that someone had to like figure the shit out and like get our shit together pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But what's been really nice recently is that now the kids are 19 and 15 and they can sustain themselves more or less. That we've been able to regress a bit.
That's lovely.
Yeah,
great.
So we've like been misbehaving and doing the stuff that all our friends and sending our friends like updates. You know, like I mean, like we had. I mean, I don't know how much I should say because my children might hear this, and they think we're upstanding members of society.
Do they?
I don't think so. No, I really don't think so. One of them is constantly throwing my roll-ups away because they've discovered it's bad to smoke.
Yes, indeed. I mean, they're right. That means you brought them up correctly.
I think we did, even though secretly we've been, misbehaving. But no, it's been really interesting just seeing the difference. But what happens now is that all my friends who helped babysit when I was a teenager are having kids now. And there are these credits which I'd forgotten about. And I owe like 10,000 hours of babysitting.
Yeah, you probably do.
Yeah. So
and they're calling to cash those chips in.
They're being cashed in right now.
Are they?
Yeah. And I'm like a little bit over that. Like, I just want to go out and have fun. And I realise that I owe a whole bunch of people.
Oh no.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what I'm going to do.
You have to say that you're too busy with your career.
I'm too busy. I'm too busy with my career. Yeah, I'm going to get used to doing
But
that.
so then, presumably you didn't straight away become an agent. What did you do after you graduated?
So after uni, we moved to France.
Okay.
Tu
parles franglais?
My franglais is so good you would not imagine. We moved there for a year. Or was it 2? No, it was a year and a half.
Is your husband French?
No, he's Austrian.
He's Austrian, sorry,
Yeah,
of course he is.
He's Austrian / German. Yeah, he's Austrian-German.
Why France then?
Because he was studying at university. He did a master's there. And so I went along and I did language exchange in the village. And I got so excited because I always liked the idea of... I always loved film. And I liked the idea of writing. And I just knew that there was something in there, but I didn't know what it was. And there was a guy whose children were at the same nursery in this village outside Paris where we lived. And he said he was in film and would I like to do language exchange with him? And I said, yeah, cool, amazing. And so he came and we did an hour in French and an hour in English. And during that time, it transpired that he filmed abattoirs. So
Whoa.
it was really creepy. He filmed, maybe he didn't only film abattoirs, but at that stage he'd only filmed abattoirs. Maybe he's now like branched out into
hope so.
Zoos and animal
If he's
farms.
still doing it sort of 15 years later, whatever it is, then it might be unhealthy.
It might be unhealthy. Also, how much footage do you need of abattoirs? So he showed me some of the... I don't want to call them trailers because that like sort of a bit cruel to the creatures, but
footage.
some of the bitty bits of footage of sort of pig farming abattoirs. So that put an end to that particular language exchange. Sorry, Robert, I'm really worried about you hitting your head on the. I'm so sorry. I know I'm always worried about you, but that's the thing.
Is this a COVID thing? You've got an exercise machine here.
That's my son, he's a rower.
Okay.
It's an erg.
Ergo. Rowerg.
But yes, that was so. Yeah, I did a bit of that, a bit of this, and a bit of that in France. And then I had a second child, so that's quite,
Yeah.
The reality of that is, you either have a job that earns enough money where you can afford to pay someone else to look after your kids, or you don't, and you look after your kids.
Yeah.
So it wasn't actually until 2011 that I started working as an agent. So that was almost 3 years after I graduated.
And how did you decide that that's what you wanted to do, or was it just sort of happenstance? And
I was reading. So a friend of mine started an agency. Who you've met, Sissy?
Yes.
Yeah. And I was reading for her, and she was sort of paying me per play to read and write reports. And then the agency grew a bit. It's connected with a mother agency in Denmark, hence Lars von Trier and all the Danish dudes and Thomas Vinterberg. And I just loved it. I loved the reading, but I also loved trying to sort of matchmake directors, producers with projects. And we get on really well. It's just the two of us. And so that's been going on. And I've had just the one. I don't want to do anything else. I feel like, people go from job to job, and I wish I had that in me, but I just adore, and I know the roster, I know who we rep, and I know I know it back to front, and
it's a good fit.
It's a good fit, so why quit a winning formula?
So then why start a second career as a playwright?
Well, that's a good question. Well, I guess I'd always written.
Have you got some juvenilia that you could share with us now?
Oh my gosh, I should have put some aside, because if I go and look for some, I'm just going to... Actually, my mum sent me something the other day, but it might take a while to find it. Shall I see if I can find it?
If you want.
It's really boring, though. It's actually just really boring juvenilia. I wrote... I tried all sorts of different types of writing, and I actually came really late to theatre, so it wasn't... I'd been to maybe one play a year from the age of 13, maybe 10, but it was always people outside of the family who took me to the theatre.
Right.
And not my own family, who were very much in music and art.
Of course.
So I spent a lot of time in auditoriums, but just listening to abstract, not abstract sounds, but music.
Well, music,
yeah.
Right? Did you watch your grandfather play?
I did, and I don't remember. I feel terrible, but I did.
He was that good, he blew your mind.
He blew my mind.
Wiped the whole slate clean.
Forever blown. I remember seeing him conduct, but I don't remember him playing, which is sad, maybe. But I remember him conducting. And yeah, always, there are memories in the Royal Festival Hall, and I remember him saying something to the audience about his grandchildren being in the audience, and obviously nobody knew who we were, but it made me flush.
You had that special feeling.
Special, very special, yeah. I remember all the beautiful concerts in the Swiss churches in the Bernese Oberland, which is a beautiful, quite low mountain range, and he started a music festival in these churches, and he used to do a lot of preparation and rehearsing in the chalet, and that was with my dad, and so music was always surrounding me, and my dad's a pianist, so there was something in, I suppose the only similarity is that there's a stage and an audience and a performer. It's completely, and a craft, but a totally different craft, and so I've just wandered off, but you said, how did you get into playwriting?
Well, we were saying about how rewarding and enjoyable you found the work of being an agent.
Yeah.
And then I said, well, then why open up a second branch as a second career as a screenwriter? And then you were starting to tell me about your experience with theatre, which sounded fairly thin on the ground
Yeah.
growing up. But then, was there an inciting incident, or was there just a slow growth over time, or how did it?
I think it was a slow growth over time, because I did try to express myself using words, like written form, but I didn't find dialogue until I did actually read Symposium, because you're a philosopher, and that was interesting because it's a way of, because one does talk to oneself.
Yes.
So I guess it started inside my head, but it was only through working as an agent and seeing more and more plays that I realised that that was probably the right way. But it just took a while to have that realisation, and the rhythm of language.
Yes.
Really important, and also how you can, and the silence, which is used in music as well, so effectively. And someone actually said about The Passenger, and it was very interesting because one of the reviews mentioned the end of The Passenger being like the end of Holst's Planets, the silence at the end, or the petering out. And couple of months ago, when we were still in rehearsals, I'd left a voice note for Tim about the end, for me, feeling like the end of Mahler's Ninth Symphony, where there's, I don't know how many bars of silence, maybe 2 or 3. And it's the Ninth Symphony. It was finished, but it's like, it was his last one, and it's death. It's the silence where it's the death, somehow, at the end. And so, well, that's me on silence.
Nadya Menuhin on silence.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very powerful tool. I mean, we've got, not to give anything away, but the end of the play, there's a piece of audio and darkness. Let's just put it that way. And there's always silence that follows it. And we have had to date, how many performances? Maybe 30, 20, I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
In that range. Out of all those audiences, we have had one audience that have started to applaud before the lights came up and the other actors walk on stage. Everyone else has just still been in some state of either confusion or shock or awe, or nice things or nasty things, whichever way you want to paint it, but still just like. And was one the lights came up and the actors walked on and we were stood there and this woman was looking at me like, and I always had to like give her a little nod, and then everyone started applauding and stuff.
God.
They don't know what to do.
Do you know what the audience constellation was the day where they did clap?
It's a good question. I can't remember that. No, can't exactly remember that. She was a sort of middle-aged woman, the one that I made eyes with in that moment. And I've asked a few different people about that ending and how and it's different answers. It's not one uniform thing as to why they don't applaud straight. Some of them are saying, I'm still too moved.
Yes.
And some have given more prosaic answers like, well, I didn't want to be the first one to do it.
Yeah.
One we had the other day, the lights went out and someone went, oh, and then there was nothing for quite a while, and then the lights came off and then everyone
God, that's so British. It's such a British, there's just a general British response, which is, I remember like not being British enough at my friend's wedding, and she walked down the aisle and I stood up and clapped, and someone said, "This isn't Italy." I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. You're not allowed to clap in a church." That ending is crazy, and also just sitting. I've been maybe 7 times now, and there are times when the humour is, what happens is read as humour, and there are times when the audience is silent, and it's not because there's a disengagement, it's because they're totally with it, but it's just a different, like on Saturday when... Yeah.
Well, you know what's funny about that show? So that was the show where afterwards that we had this group, and they're called Second Connections Network.
Second Generation.
Second Generation Network, and it's all people whose parents or relatives survived the Holocaust in some way, right?
Yeah.
Or some didn't survive, of course.
Yeah.
But anyway, they'd been in to see the show, and then afterwards you were having a talk and I came for some of the talk. But I'd completely forgotten that they were going to be there because I'm very busy with the show and just focus on the show. And after the end of the show, we're all in the dressing room being like, God, they wouldn't laugh at anything today. God, such a... it's weird, isn't it? I mean, I know it's not a comedy, but there's some good jokes in there, and we're saying all this as we're getting changed. And then, Ted comes in and it's like, Rob, Tim, there's a group. And I'm just thinking, oh, there's been other groups he wants me to meet. It'll just be some group.
Yes.
Again, completely forgotten. And I walk in the room and just very, and it's like, and this is Robert, and this very serious, older looking in general people being like, and I sit down and he explains what it is, and straight away I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
And Nadya, I was fucking starving.
I'm so...
And I had a show in 2 hours, and I was like, and let me guess, your parents did also survive the Holocaust, right? And then maybe some of them did, some of them didn't. Great, got it. Okay, I've got to have a sandwich. Felt really bad.
Oh my God.
I was like, I can't just leave now that I know what this is.
Oh,
also, it was really interesting hearing their takes on the play as well.
Yeah, it was, afterwards when you left, they did say, God, he's rude, but it was fine. They were like, God, he's the rude Jew. He's one of them. No, they loved having you there. You know what really resonated, and I want you to, if you can, remember the quote from your grandfather in one of his letters from the Isle of Man or the other Isle.
Yes, so he was writing to his father about, or was it the other way around, his father writing to him? It was one of those letters, and they were talking about Germany, and they were saying, still dearly beloved Germany, but now run by gangsters. And that's how they phrased it.
That is so powerful. I feel like we need to put that quote up top in the play, along with the Walter Rathenau one.
I love the Walter Rathenau one, yeah.
That's beautiful. Yes, most people have picked up on that.
It's really funny. Me and Kelly were walking to the theatre one night after one of the shows. It was quite early on. We'd had some really good press in, and we were walking along. And I was saying, I couldn't remember the name. It was one of the small publications that we'd had in. I couldn't remember. And I was like, has Tim seen the new review? Because I think it's really good. We could use it. He's like, what? She's like, what review? I can't remember. It's By the Spoon or something. She just burst out laughing. She's like, yeah, that's right. We'll go and we'll tell Tim. We got 5 stars from the Spoon. Everything's gonna change. Broadway, here we come. The Spoon love us.
The Spoon. What about the Fork and the Hatchet? I'll tell you what, it was a hatchet job.
Ah, indeed.
Yeah.
I know.
My mum loves it.
Does
Your
she?
mum loves it.
And she does, yeah. She came the second time last week. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so when I saw her, it was just before she was going for the second time.
Yes, that's
with your
right.
brother Jeremy. Was it Jem's first experience?
Yes.
What was his response?
Yeah, he loved it too. Yeah, he really did. That was a good show. I had some friends in. There's going to be an interesting piece. My friend came over from Sweden. He's German. Oh. He was very moved by it. He's a philosopher of aesthetics, and he's been commissioned by the Journal of Aesthetics to write about our show.
Wow.
And he's also read the book, and I think he's going to talk about adaptation and stuff like that.
We will. That's brilliant. That's very interesting. And of course, in philosophy, aesthetics has a lot more meaning than the pure feeling and mode of the world. What is it?
Yeah.
What is the real deep dive?
It's really interesting. Whenever I get talking to him, we go down these rabbit holes. He's been on the podcast, actually. So sometimes we talk, if you go back in the archive,
yes.
If you're a real fan, you will know. We talk about it sometimes. It's a lot... It has lots of crossovers in lots of different ways. So sometimes we'll talk about like rules, norms of society as well. How sometimes some of those are aesthetically decided as well that we were talking about saunas the other day. And there was some aesthetic discussion about, like, do you go naked or do you wear stuff? And what would the rule? Why would there be a rule about that? What would the rule come from? And he said that sometimes if you go to a naked sauna, you see people like wearing swimming trunks when they're not allowed to. The reason given will be, it's synthetic material. We don't want it touching the wood and stuff. But you get the feeling that that's not really the reason, is it? No. That's not why there's that rule there. No. Why is the rule there?
I suppose the rule is that if it's a naked sauna, because you don't want to get, pervs wearing pants, looking at other men. I don't know.
Pervs in pants.
Pervs in pants.
A new two-hander fast by Nadya Menuhin.
That's a good one. Can we write? Oh, it's on here. It's recorded. It's something, and also there's a what's it called when we're all. It's nakedness
equalising.
Is an equaliser.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is ruining the vibe of the great equalising of nakedness.
And similarly, if everyone else is in trunks but you're naked, you're ruining the vibe. But if it's a naked sauna, even though you're the only one that's naked, and they're ruining the vibe.
Yes.
So it's really dependent on the rule.
Yes.
In place in the establishment.
It is, but then there's also that weird middle ground which I occupy. Which is...
What is this, just no top but bottom?
No, you're allowed, because it's not synthetic, you're allowed to wear a towel in naked saunas. So you're naked, but you wear a towel.
Around your head, around your middle.
Around your entire self. And so you can get, that's a loophole, which I discovered.
It's
a towel loophole, which I discovered in the Austrian Alps, because there was a Lebnitzfeld, which was in the local sauna, swimming pool, the municipal pool.
What's a Lebnitzfeld?
I think it means like playground world or happy world. Adventure world. Yes, it's like a sort of adventure.
Like it,
But I can have my adventure with a towel on, although I do have to say I don't know where to look. I'm not, that's the British part of me coming out.
Isn't it that you know where not to look? Isn't that the rule?
The ceiling is a good place to look.
Yeah. Or people's eyes are probably
really
fine.
Intense.
And as long as they don't wander too far.
The problem is with peripheral vision.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you should get special, like, glasses.
No, but again, then you're the perv wearing the glasses in the sauna. I mean, not regular glasses are probably allowed, but they'll steam up, so they're pointless.
Yeah.
The windscreen wipers.
So the aesthetic of our play is going to be investigated by a man who's previously investigated the aesthetics of saunas.
Well, no, he hasn't done that professionally. That was just me and him talking about it. But he's a professor of philosophy.
That's so interesting. I feel like it's spoken to a lot of people in specialist worlds. I got called up by an old neighbour of mine, Sonia. Shout out to Archway. She is an asylum lawyer. That's her specialty. And she's coming again to see it. She wants to write an article in a magazine. It's called The Jewish Socialists.
Okay.
Socialism.
Nein.
The Jewish Socialist. About the border guard scene. Oh, maybe this is all spoilery stuff.
Fine.
But
no, it's fine.
she just said every Home Secretary should be made to see the play or read it, which I thought was really interesting. She said she just comes across every day these moments where a refugee comes up against a system and it's just a hopeless case. It's just...
Especially the legal framework does not have any bend or give in it anymore, sort of thing.
Yeah. Which was sort of interesting and very scholarly, and I'm sure it will be something that I won't understand. I'll have to get her to explain it all to me. But yeah, so we've got philosophers and academics.
Oh, hello. You want to join in? You like the cable?
She's very sweet. She's very sweet, but for a misanthrope, she's no good, because when you take dogs for walks, people talk to you.
Yes, they do.
And that's not great if you don't feel like it. And
you need a less friendly dog then.
Yeah.
You get yourself one of those big XL bullies. Nadya and the bully.
Woo. Yeah, I do like, I mean, Fern, the beautiful fox red dog, she can look scary to people because she's quite big. And so I do feel walking around Pentonville Prison, I feel like at least I give off the vibes.
What? As you do every Thursday? What do you mean walking around Pentonville? Okay. You mean you are near to the environs of Pentonville Prison?
Oh, I see, yes. It's our local prison.
I was like, are you on day release? What's going on?
No. Although I am going to prison on Sunday, actually.
What for?
I'm going to a high security prison I've been there before and I forget the name every time.
And they let you out?
And they let me out every time. And it's to see Maid and Dagenham in HMP Bronzefield, which is a high security women's prison. And it's run by Maid and Dagenham, is produced by Pimlico Opera, who have been doing work in prisons, operas and musicals since the 90s, I think. And they get sort of 50% professional singers and director, and then 50% inmates. And it's really...
And you just sit down and watch the movie?
Well, I mean, it's live.
Oh.
It's like singing and dancing inmates.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh my God, I might even have a spare ticket. Oh no, sorry, you're busy. You're in a play. What was the one again? I forget. Next time. It's really...
Do they tell you who's who, or is it like a guessing game?
No, they give you their names. So like, Lucy Letby's there.
Lucy Letby's in the show?
I don't know if she's in the show, but she's in HMP Bronzefield. Star casting. Get rid of that. And it's terrible, but what they do is they give you a program. I don't know if this can go in, you have to judge this later. They give you a program. First of all, you go in with your passport and they take like your fucking DNA and a stool sample.
Of course, yeah.
And then you get into a big sort of hall area, and you've gone through so many... This is what frightens me, because I've been to, high security mental institutions for various reasons. Not for myself, I hasten to add, but like it's not funny to go into one because you're worried about escaping and maybe being mistaken for one.
Yeah.
Which is like, we all are a bit mad.
No, yeah.
So
I've volunteered at some of those places. I've seen those situations. It's not funny in the slightest. No, I know. I understand.
And the feeling of claustrophobia when you're in there.
It's terrifying.
Oof. And those double doors.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, even if I wanted to get out, there's no way I'm getting out.
No. And like, am I?
Yeah.
Who's crazy? And
it was the guy throwing piss at me in this instance.
Oh my God. It was the woman flashing at me in that instance. I threw a lot of baked goods at her because baked goods, you might know by now, are my like defense mechanism. Mm-hmm. I just feel like everyone should be fed, and a lot.
It's a love language.
It's a love language. It's not a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
So I brought some to the high security mental unit. And I gently threw them at someone who was splashing at me. But HMP Bronzefield. You go into various security things, and you've gone through about 4 or 5 doors, or it feels like that, and then you're in this hall before you get to the gym hall, which is converted a little bit like Payne's Plough into a makeshift, but very like well done, like very professional auditorium. But most of the women in there have got there because they've been at least that's what, because you in the programme you have the character cast list, and you can't, I mean, it's just, this inmate is next to this professional actor, it's only when you read the biographies that you see what.
Wow.
And usually they're usually sort of very sad stories about women trying to, like, single mums trying to like ending up doing something awful because they got desperate and took drugs and went a bit doolally one night or something. But it's also quite celebratory. It's quite joyous because they put on a piece of theatre, and I think it must be. I'd love to know what happens afterwards because it's I can see that it's sad at the end of any project when you're a group and you disband.
Yeah.
But if you're disbanding
And,
and
some of you are going back to captivity.
well, you're constantly in captivity, but yeah, you're back to like.
But I mean,
zero.
but figuratively you're out of captivity when you're performing, aren't you?
Yeah.
So, and some of the company will be leaving the establishment at the end, and some will very much not be.
Yeah, forever.
Must be very curious. Must make for an interesting show though to watch.
It is. I mean, the Sunday is made in Dagenham. I actually don't know it.
Well, this is why I asked about it, because they made a film of it, but it is also a stage show. I haven't seen it.
No.
I don't know. I think it's an empowerment story. I think it is. I think it's like a, through adversity, triumph, working class women story, I think.
Oh, that sounds quite similar to the previous one I saw, which was about bacon in wartime. Yeah. Sort of. Anyway, yeah, that makes sense. I think they did do some operas in the past, but I think it was more successful as musicals.
Yeah, that makes
more upbeat.
Yeah, and more accessible as well in general.
Yeah, but it's a really worthwhile project. It's really brilliant, and the lady who runs them, Waspikani, is just a mover and a shaker. Yeah, so.
Gosh.
But so, what were you doing working inside?
I was just volunteering. I was considering becoming a psychologist or a psychotherapist years ago, and as part of that I wanted to have the real life experience of what it was like, so I was just volunteering at South Lambeth Prison in their psych ward, which was so intense.
And was this during while you were studying a bit, or was it just a separate?
No, this was separate. Yeah. But I was looking at courses to maybe do this, and I didn't really have any experience, and a lot of them needed some experience. So I was like, well, this would be the perfect thing, and then I just ended up doing it for quite a long time, because you could tell you were helping, but also it was sometimes pretty scary.
How many hours would you do on a day?
Like 2 hours a day, twice a week. It was, and I was a bit of a baked goods guy. I would bring in.
Did you throw
stuff like that? I didn't throw it. I had it thrown at me.
Oh my god! And presumably they're medicated, which would ease their suffering, but equally, it's not the answer. Or does it help? Like, there
are edge cases, aren't there?
Yeah.
There are definitely people who, given the right medicine and the right regime, can then be reintegrated. But there were just some that were just like, there's definitely nothing else you can do apart from be in an institution. That is the best solution, but it doesn't solve the problem.
No.
No. The problem seems to be fundamentally unresolvable.
And yes, because even good old R.D. Laing tried, didn't he? To like normalise it and be like, look, if you treat these people not like not excluding people with mental health issues, extreme mental health issues, but that also didn't really work. We've got paranoid schizophrenia in my family, and all of us are really scared of going mad. We're just like, am I okay? I think I'm okay. And every now and again I ring up my mum and I'm like, Mum, can you just check? And I'm like, she's completely the wrong person to ask. She's ringing me up. She's like, I'm so scared of going mad. The people who don't worry about it are probably the ones who should be worrying. That's how I console myself, Robert.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh God. I did work for a while actually in lockdown for a sad mum's helpline.
Is that what it was called, or is that what you're calling
that's
it?
That's what I'm calling it. It was.
Hello, welcome to Sad Mums. Let me guess, you didn't do your homework. Fuck it. It was. Some of them were just like sad. Some of them really needed help and someone physically with them, which was frustrating because it was on the phone. Yeah. There wasn't much you could do. But sometimes people just needed to talk and be listened to, which is so simple. It sounds like such a silly sort of cheap trick, but it's just no, it's important.
Knowing that you're being
heard and listened to, and
there's a connection. Otherwise, you're totally isolated.
Because I think about it sometimes with your friends, if they come to you with a problem, sometimes they're looking for advice, sometimes they don't want advice.
Yeah.
And so that's just to vent.
Yeah.
But if you're just venting at the wall or into the ether, it doesn't vent back, and if it starts to vent back...
Problems.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why things like, the Samaritans and whatever, that's why they're vital. No, and that's literally life-saving, but again, it's the same technology. It's just being able to talk to someone and have them talk back. So.
Oh my God, the not advice thing is so good. Like, and also knowing that the person is really engaged with you, because when we were making the pancakes, you mentioned somebody who you knew or something who was quite good at being polite to people. And how that can sometimes be read as like, what a sweet guy.
Yeah.
But actually, you know this man.
Yeah.
And you know that he's being polite, but you know that it's all bullshit. And it's really nice to meet people with their masks off, which isn't always possible, because the masks are very, the moment we leave the house, there's a certain amount of construct just to like get on the Victoria line and
don't get me started about the districts.
Oh my God. But and advice is one of those things which, you have to be aware whether the person is asking for it. And there are some people who think that you're asking for advice, and it's frustrating because all you want is to express and have a bitch. Yeah. About things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you have any, what happens? I'm really intrigued because you've had a really intense period, and my intense period ended a week ago, I suppose. I've still got a few, things going on, but you're acting until the 15th of March. Mm-hmm. And do you have a ritual, or do you sleep for a week? Or do you go on holiday? What do you do after a period like this?
Yeah. No, I don't sleep for a week because I'm an insomniac. But what I usually try and do after a really busy period is have like a massage.
Oh, yeah.
Something like that. Just really just iron out the kinks of the show from my body. And then go and see another show. And that helps me sort of get over the hump a bit. Because otherwise you get withdrawals. It's hard not to. But those are all sort of plasters on a bigger problem, really. Because, like you said, any time a group breaks apart when it's not voluntarily, there is some of that like
really
feeling. Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially as I think we're going to have quite a fun last evening together. Everyone's quite excited for that, which is great.
Yeah.
But means all the more so. I don't know if you've ever been to a music festival, but if you've had a really good time and you're leaving, you sort of think, well, back to normal life.
Yeah. Let's also come down.
Yeah, well, there's also that too. So it doesn't help at all.
No. Oh my God.
Why do I feel so terrible? Oh yeah, the consequences of my actions.
Yes. Yes, I'm looking forward to the last night as well. The next show, which comes in the following day with a dog in tow. Yeah, not my dog, although my Fern was trained as an acting dog, but she didn't make it. So she does other things. But the following day on the 6th, so the last show is the 15th, and everything has to be out by 12 o'clock or whatever,
something
6
crazy,
a.m. Yeah, and then the next show is in the next day, but they're starting to put themselves together the following day, which is crazy. But yeah, it will be. We should have a proper party. We should plan that.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah. Baked goods and stuff. But,
baked goods, yeah.
But yeah, so it is always a sort of a downer, a depressing moment, and you're sort of prepared for it, and you've got your plasters, but nothing.
Yeah, I mean, even if you have a next job lined up, I think there's still some element of that. Just can't not be. But there are some people who bounce from project to project to downtime to. Like Dan, for example, was going to India the day after the show finishes.
I did not know.
Which I think would probably help flush some of it from your system.
Yeah.
But there's still no way for... Your mind is still going to unpack things, and you're still going to have bits of your speech come to you in your sleep and all the rest of it. Like, I think the chess will be the first thing to go. E4, knight F3. That's not going to mean anything to me soon.
You are listening to Bliss of the Abyss. Ooh, yeah.
I've just told you the funniest joke you've ever heard. Oh, that's the funniest joke you've ever heard.
No, you should have seen it on Saturday night. The funniest joke I ever heard was, it came from a tulip.
That's good.
From a tulip downstairs.
Go on, what's the funniest joke?
What's the funniest joke? The funniest joke is...
Came from a tulip?
Yeah, but I can't remember what it said.
Oh, you can't remember what
I can't remember what it said.
I see.
But I can tell you a funny joke. So, the pressure to remember the punchline means the punchline springs up before the rest of it. So, a little boy, Moshe, who's in Upper West Side School, and he always wants to answer the teacher, and the teacher asks one day, it's an English teacher, she in shul, asks the class what judicious means. And Moshe puts his hand up and she says, no, Moshe, wait. We're going to ask the other members of the class first. And no one knows what judicious means. And she goes, okay, Moshe goes, what does judicious mean? And he said, well, judicious is gefilte fish, pickles, and chopped liver. That's it. That's mine. That's the only one I can remember. Yeah. But
now, he has to be called Moishe, but because he's called Moishe and it's judicious, I know it's going to be something...
Yeah. I should have called him Dan.
Dan?
Yeah, that's sort of across the board available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you get the confusion of, oh, Dan must be Jewish.
Yeah.
Maybe you can be like, Dan. Yes, Dan Goldstein.
Like the iceberg joke. Yeah.
What's the iceberg joke?
I can't remember it. That is too many component parts for me to process right now, but I'll send it to you.
Your favourite joke is just set up punchline. Do you like the old Jewish jokes ones? Do you ever see that TV show?
No.
There's an amazing TV show called Old Jews Telling Jokes.
Oh, ringing bells.
It's so good. It's so good. Do you want me to tell you my favourite? It's quite long.
Please.
I'll try and shorten it.
No, just say it how it comes out.
So, Moishe is speaking with his friends at the retirement home, and he's come to visit them, and he's like, how is it in here? And they're like, oh, it's terrible, you know, my back hurts, and I'm getting really old, and my memory's going, and you know, the women in here, I can't get any interest from any of them, and he goes, oh, it's so terrible. Yeah, I've got all of that as well. Yeah, it's really bad. Apart from, of course, I'm cutting like a diamond down there. I'm just totally fine. And they're like, what are you talking about? How? You know, we're all old. We can't get anything going anymore. And he goes, tell you what, you come over to my house, and I'll show you the medicine that the doctor got me. And they go, okay, yeah, we must come over. So next day, they go over to Moshe's house. He goes, oh, come in. This is my wife, and have a sit down. They have some coffee, and they're like, listen, we just want to really ask about the medicine. And he goes, what medicine? He goes, you know, the medicine to get you strong and hard. And he goes, what are you talking about? And he goes, he's got Alzheimer's, you idiot. Okay, you were telling us the other day about the doctor for the women. And Moshe goes, of course. And he goes, oh, what's that thing called? No, what thing? He goes, you know, it's like, it grows out the ground, it's got thorns on it, spiky, and it's got these beautiful flowers. Sometimes they're red, sometimes they're white. And Abraham goes, a rose? And he goes, that's it, Rose! What are the name of those pills?
I love that because you're waiting for it to land. You're waiting. I want to see this. Old Jews telling jokes.
Yeah.
Old Jewish men telling jokes?
No, there's women as well.
There are women as well.
Absolutely.
I love it because women can be funny too sometimes.
Yeah. There's some great women in there. It's brilliant.
It's
Brilliant. Thanks for listening to the show. If you've enjoyed it, please give us 5 stars and consider becoming a subscriber and maybe even supporting us on Patreon. Really helps me continue making this show. If you haven't enjoyed it, then you can fuck off. Many thanks to Nils Hennis-Steer for the amazing music and to Dave Fox for the cool artwork. Please keep coming back every week for more Bliss of the Abyss.
Message 1.